Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to do a book tag, which I don't think I've done one this year so far, so I'm excited to finally do one this year, and I was actually tagged with this tag. So this is the Leap Year book tag, created by Amy Myers and Melted Books. I will link their original videos below, and I was tagged by Becks from Get Bookish. I will also link her tag video below, so definitely check those out. The first question is an extra day. What's a book that brought you something a little extra? So I actually went to my bookshelves and looked for any book that sort of stood out to me as something extra, and this was the one that I chose. It is Autobiography by A Milne. I think it is also published under the name It's Too Late Now, which is definitely the better title, but this is A Milne's autobiography from growing up in sort of the Edwardian era in Britain, and being a young boy filled with adventure, sort of adventurous spirit, having this sort of freedom to roam and play in nature and just have a lot of fun, and the kind of childhood that is sort of idyllic in a lot of ways, but also some of the hardships. Like, for example, he went to boarding school, and he talks about the fact that the food there was so bad, so he sort of developed this love for food afterwards as a sort of continuous craving. The reason that this book stood out to me is because I read the Winnie the Pooh books, Winnie the Pooh and the House at Pooh Corner, a few years ago for the first time. I'd already loved the Disney movie adaptations, but I read the books and fell in love with his writing style. And so I was searching for more books by him, and this one came up. So I decided to pick it up because I was curious about his life, and discovered that, first of all, he is both a fantastic fiction and nonfiction writer, but also there's something about his writing that just appeals to me on a really, like, a very specific note. He's really witty and snarky, and sort of the kind of childhood that he talks about is something that I both can relate to in a certain aspects. Even though I grew up in the 90s, there's sort of the same sort of lifestyle of just playing and feeling kind of unburdened by restrictions. I feel like there's something about that I really related to, but also there are specific historical aspects in this book that I loved, and sort of the boarding school experience, and early 20th century Britain is something that I'm already really interested in, and so adding his humor and perspective to the book just made it a really enjoyable experience for me on so many levels. The second question is, taking a big leap, what is one book that you are/were afraid to read? So with this question, the books that come to mind are sort of big classics, especially Russian classics and French classics. So two books that I was intimidated by, but not anymore because I've read them, is in the Russian classic sense, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I think I was mainly intimidated by this book because of its size, and I'd also heard that the names was really difficult to keep track of. The name thing is a thing, but you do get used to that, and Anna Karenina is sort of exploring themes of romantic love, but also purpose and family and work, and all of those things that is so recognizable. So it isn't an intimidating book in my opinion. The other book that I thought of as a French classic is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, and this one is kind of a slog in parts. So Victor Hugo definitely likes to go on tangents to do with political and historical sort of discourse, and those are interesting, but they definitely are more of a heavy subject to read rather than the characterization or the character plot. So that was more hard work, but both of them I felt were very enjoyable reading experience on the whole. The third question is every 4 years, what is the fourth book you read this year? So the fourth book I read this year was The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion, which is a grief memoir where Didion talks about the death of her husband and the active processing that she is doing in coming to terms with his passing. And I love this book. I thought it was fantastic. It was my first 5-star read of the year. The fourth question is 366 days in the year. Looking at your third shelf, name the sixth book on that shelf and name the sixth book after that. So that was a complicated thing. However, I've already done this. And there are two books that I've actually quite recently talked about because I am currently doing a library tour, which is sort of ongoing. And the third shelf is a shelf that I've recently done a video of, so I will link that in the cards down below. So the first book that came up in this question is Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. And this is a book that I read right around the time that I started to watch BookTube. Actually, I picked this up as a consequence of watching a lot of booktubers talk about and recommend Murakami's works. And then the other book that came up is Lap Girl, A Story of Trees, Science and Love by Hope Jahren. So this is a book that I didn't love everything about. I know that it's a really popular nature memoir. The parts that I loved was the parts that she talks about her work. So she is a researcher as a profession, and she talks about some of the struggles in getting financial support, in being considered as serious, and some of the day-to-day struggles as a researcher, and I found that so valuable and really interesting. So I love that aspect of this book, definitely. The fifth question is, leaping ahead, name 4 books you want to read by the next leap year. Alternatively, name something on your bookish bucket list that you want to complete by the next leap year. I think the easiest way for me to answer this is classics, because there are quite a few classics that I would really like to read and just haven't gotten to yet. Another Russian classic that I really want to read is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and this is, in particular, I find it really interesting because it's so often mentioned in academic writing on crime-related things, crime prevention, and criminology theory and things like that. So it just feels like it's such a relevant book to read. So I definitely want to read that. There are a lot of classical literature that I would really like to get to, such as the Odyssey and the Iliad, but also some of the plays and things like that, that I just feel like I really want to read to be able to understand sort of the all of the retellings and all of the interpretation that has come after it. Another author that I really want to read more of in the near future is Shakespeare. So I think I've read 3 plays, at least as an adult. And also, lastly, Persuasion I would really like to read in the next 4 years, because it's the last Jane Austen I haven't read. So I'd really like to finish off her bibliography and then be able to reread all of the books. The sixth question is Leapfrog. Name a book on your TBR that has green in it. So I've chosen this one. It is The Hidden World of the Fox by Adele Brand. It is a book that came out last year, and it is a natural history / a cultural history of the fox. I'm not sure exactly sort of where the focal point is, but it is a history of the fox. And I was really interested in this because I love Foxes Unearthed by Lucy Jones, and I haven't seen any other books about the fox for sort of popular audience. The seventh question is bad luck. What bookish things do you steer clear of? Mainly, there are 2 things that comes to mind very strongly for me. So the first one is in terms of the structure. I don't really love books that have a fragmentary writing style. It's something that I've sort of realized over time, that I've been reading quite a few books described as fragmentary, and discovered that it isn't really a thing that I usually enjoy. There are definitely exceptions to this, but I often find that I'm struggling to put the pieces together and to make more of them than just fragments. So I often find it quite a frustrating reading experience. It is something that I've sort of very recently decided to steer clear of. The other thing is something that I've steered clear of for a long time now, and it is animal violence. I hate it when animals are abused in books, in movies, in anything, any form of media. And if I know that a book will contain a strong element of an animal abuse scene, then I will probably avoid reading that book. So this is a problem, especially when you read nature writing, and sometimes there's sort of an overlap with fishing and hunting and things like that in nature writing. It's just something that I really feel uncomfortable with. Eighth and last question is tag 4 people. So I'm gonna tag Hannah's books, Silje, Amy Anders, and Heidi from My Reading Life. So I know that this tag is for the leap year, and probably when this video comes up is almost the end of February, but I don't think that these questions are necessarily that time constricted, so hopefully if you are interested in doing the tag, you will be able to do so. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon.